morning, one and all. Welcome back to the 7th session and 4th day FDP program conducted by Raghu Engineering College. Before starting the program, I would like to just give an introduction regarding the topic of FDP today. The topic for today's FDP is Systematic Literature Review and Data Collection by Professor K. Srinivasa, Principal College of Science and Technology, Andhra University, Vizag. I would like to request Dr. Mallikarjun Rao, HOD, Mathematics, Raghu Engineering College, to invite Professor Srinivasa Rao Garu after giving a short introduction of sir. Over to Mallikarjun sir. Sir, please.
Thank you, ma'am. It's my honor to introduce today's morning session speaker, Professor K. Srinivasa Rao Garu. Professor Rao currently holds distinguished roles, including Principal at Andhra University College of Science and Technology, Member Secretary of APSET since 2015, and a valued member of Andhra University Academic Senate. His remarkable tenure at Andhra University spans various significant positions, notably as ISO Coordinator, Department Head, Department of Statistics, and UGC Coordinator. Professor Rao's exceptional contributions extend beyond academia. He has been a guiding force in diverse capacities, including APRSET convener, NAC steering committee chairman, and the president of the Indian Society for Probability and Statistics. His editorial roles in renowned publications, leadership at the Operations Research Society of India, OPSET, and industry engagement at JBS, a multinational company, and other corporations underscore his multifaceted expertise. Throughout his illustrious career, Professor Rao has authored a pivotal book on model-based color image segmentation, and he has published extensively with 223 research papers and patents to his credit. He has influenced fields as varied as statistics, mathematics, computer science, and engineering, and he has mentoring 54 PhD students and delivering numerous lectures worldwide. His innovative ideas have led to groundbreaking concepts in network models, distribution theory, image segmentation, and more. With over 35 years of dedication to teaching, research, and consulting, Professor Rao continues to inspire and shape the academic landscape. His legacy is one of profound impact, contributing significantly to the advancement of knowledge and nurturing of future talent. I am handing over the session to Professor K.S. Rao to deliver his talk.
Types of research, review of literature, data collection methods, sampling techniques, and what are the key weaknesses in review of literature as well as data collection methodologies. This we will be briefly discussing during our discussions here on this. And before I take up this, let us think about this research. Some definitions of this research. What the Webster Dictionary says about this research. Diligent inquiry or investigation into a subject in order to discover or revise facts, theories, and applications. This is what the definition given by Webster Dictionary. So here, if you look into that, two things are very important. One is systematic inquiry, the other is investigation. These are the two terms that are very much important for a research. So when we look into that, a systematic inquiry, what is the systematic inquiry? It should be more scientific, robust, and logically tenable. Then only we say it is a systematic inquiry. Another is the investigation. Hello? Are you able to
Very sorry to
hear?
interrupt.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Is it?
But your screen is blank. It's black
Screen
in
is
color.
blank.
Can you stop sharing
Here
it again?
is visible. This I'm able to see this. Okay. Now is it clear? Now what about of the screen now?
No, sir.
Hello?
Open again.
It is
Now it's
visible?
okay, sir.
Now it is visible, sir.
Yes.
So if I make a,
Yes.
what about of now?
Now blank.
Blank. So it is small, then it is coming up. If I make it as a total screen, it is not coming up.
Okay.
That is the, yeah. Yeah. Then
Now it is visible, sir.
meaning, Einstein dictionary says that science is the research. Research is nothing but of a science. Science is, what is science? We can look into that, understanding the nature. Any nature. Understanding the nature is the most consideration for science. And once we understand, why we have to understand is, apply that understanding for the development and utility of the understanding. So it is, the science is nothing else but refinement of everyday thinking. So research will give us the refinement in the everyday thinking. So if you look into these two dictionary meanings, we come across these very important considerations. One is discover a original contribution, a discovery. Research leads to a discovery. The other one is revise a critical thinking. And very important in the research part. Revising a critical thinking is very, very important. So when we look into that, quickly if we look into that, why this systematic research? The objective is research is to find answer to the questions by applying scientific procedures. We have a query. To solve that query, to find the facts, the investigation is required. For that, what we have to do is we have to have a scientific procedure. The main aim of the research is to find out truth which is hidden, that has not yet been discovered. Hidden fact which is not known to us already. That we have to get out of this research. And to gain familiarity with the new insights and phenomena, for that the research will be. And third one is development of new processes or products or policies. For this, the research will be very important. Why? Because the new processes and products that are very much important, at the same time development of the policies. These can be done only when we have a systematic research is carried out. And next important thing is, research will provide us an improvement in the processes and products, redesigning and reprocessing, so that we can utilize optimally the resources more effectively, considering the advanced scientific knowledge and technology. And the advancement of knowledge, research leads to the advancement of knowledge. So that's why it is very important, a systematic, a structured, a logically tenable fashion, the research is to be carried out. So before I go for literature review or literature survey, what are the steps in conducting the research? Let us briefly look into this. The first one is formulating the research problem. Second one is literature survey. Then literature survey will provide us research gap and objectives of the study. Then prepare the research design. After that, determination of the sample design or experimental layout. So once the sample design and experimental layout is data collection. Once you have a data, then analysis of data. Once the analysis of data is there, generalization and interpretation of the results. Once you have obtained the required results, then the book of knowledge, that is report writing, a documentation. So the book of knowledge is to be prepared. So in that, the second and sixth if you look into that. That is what we are now focusing on, that literature survey or review of literature in a systematic fashion, how we have to do that and why we have to do that and what is the need, what the benefits we are going to get in review of literature. Similarly, how scientifically we have to collect the data. These two we are going to take up in this discussion, in this session now. So, literature review. What is this? We have a background of this study. The literature review will be how this background of study. There is a query for investigation. The investigation is to be there an objective. So once you have an objective, the research questions. What type of research questions will be there with respect to any phenomenon? There are certain types of perceptions we have in mind. The perceptions will be coming out. So we have to investigate whether the perception is a reality or not. What more insights are there? What are the determinants that will be making this perception to be a reality? How we can apply this and what is this understanding phenomenon? Once we understand it, what is the relations with respect to the other phenomenon this is having? So this type of research questions, but to answer these type of research questions, they certain knowledge that already we have gone through the discipline. That's what we can have, the basic subjectual knowledge. The basic subjectual knowledge will impose either we may have the research in the concept of having a theoretical research or applied research. So theoretical research, we have to develop theories, concepts and methodologies so that we can have that and we can utilize this theory and other things in the applied research, so that we can apply these theories that has already developed or we have developed to applications, so that we can optimally utilize the resources, processes, products and develop the policies. That is what we can have. So to do this, first step in this is trust area. We have a trust area. Then the trust area is to be divided into sub-level, a macro level. From there, we have to divide it to sub-sub level. Then we can go into a very micro level part of the thing. So that if you go to a micro level, that will clear cut point out what is your problem actual consideration. Once you have that problem to get, then the questions will arise. Is this already investigated by somebody? Is it available somewhere in the literature? What the work that has been carried out so far? What the knowledge available? These are the very important questions for consideration of the literature review. So when we go for review of literature, we have to go through a in-depth available literature. We have to do in-depth study, because if you have spent a lot of time to investigate, to inquire a fact that was not already us, if it is already known to us, if it is somebody has done already in the available in the literature, if you do that, what will happen? The time you have spent, the money you have spent and the energies you have spent will become waste. So to avoid that, first an in-depth study of the available literature. So here it is very important that when you are doing this research, literature survey, you have to take care about a very interesting part. What is that? Compare your well-recorded thoughts. You have certain perceptions. You have certain knowledge already existing. You have basic subjectual understanding. You will be having discussions with others, with subject experts and others. So you have some ideas that was generated with respect to this micro level topic of research. So this micro level of topic, when you have, you compare your ideas, well-recorded thoughts and other things with the state of art of literature that already exists. So you have to do that. when you are reading an article, when you are review, it is very important that not just mechanically reading and taking the abstract alone is not sufficient. You have to understand in-depth study of that available consideration. When we are doing that, usually what will happen? What is a literature review? Because this has become a very important consideration in many of our research. Either it may be a publication of a research paper, it may be sending a project proposal, it may be a thesis writing or a dissertation or a report writing or a project report completion. Wherever we are submitting a report, what we have to do, many of the students are asked to do the, because to send a project proposal, you must have understanding that you must clearly visible to the others of the experts that you know the knowledge on that. And you have to get the motivation and generalization of the research problem you have done. That is possible only when you have an in-depth study of the literature. But usually what will happen, many of the students, many of the research scholars may be doing that. Somebody has done the review that they may be taking up, but that is not the correct way. The literature review, when you are going through, not just the abstract fashion of 1 or 2 lines that was written in a paper is not into your area, because now you have gone from discipline to area, area to sub-level, sub-level to sub-sub-level, sub-sub-level to sub-sub-level. So you are dividing that into a part. So here when this will tell you the different questions, how they have answered, what methodologies that have been taken, how the final development and solutions they arrived. That is to do, then only it comes. So review of literature will be taking up why they have chosen this particular problem, how they have chosen, and what the other considerations that will make a major consideration in this. If you look into that, what is this? We are talking about literature review. If you just look into that, a literature review is an account of what has been published on a topic by accredited scholars or researchers. Already some researcher has done some work on this particular topic, on this particular area, on this particular subject or consideration. So in this has been gone, how they have done, that is to be taken. And it is very important that one has to consider this literature review. Now very important that it should be a part of your dissertation or a thesis or your project proposal, that we have to do that. This will demonstrate that you have a in-depth sound knowledge on that. So for that it is very important. So what we have to do in literature review? What do we know about that particular topic of interest? That will be demonstrated in this literature review. What we understand by reading this article, reading this publication, reading this particular report, what we understand from that? What is our knowledge, how it helps? The second one is why do we not know what is it? What we do not know, what exactly left out? What is the research gap? That research gap can be understandable once you do the review of literature. And another very important is you have a query for that. You have an objective. Objective of the study will fit into this research gap. That is very important. Once you do the review of literature, you could be able to research gap. How? That your objectives will be fit into this research gap, and what you may expect to find. What are your hypotheses? With what perception of the hypothesis you are starting with, and then relate the literature to your study. It should be a very, very critical and appropriate. The review of literature should be very relevant to the subject matter, your study of understanding, your investigation, and your objectives of the study. And at the same time, you should read, you should write, you could put process mixed with the thought process of the author that he has written this paper or a publication that has been arranged. So this part is very, very important. Review of literature is not just taking the abstract and converting in our words and writing it. It is understanding the full length of the paper. That is very important. What the conclusions they have done, how those conclusions are very important. Whether you agree with that or differ with that. These are the very important. So the background that makes a very important consideration here, because lot of information, lot of growth that has been taken care now. Many publications, many books and journals are available. Annual reports are available and fully conversant for workable contributions. One has to understand for the particular micro level of that subset of the topic, what the work has been done, what to review and what not to review. That is very important. Review means you have to write, you have to put your ideas. That somebody's ideas, just it is not relevant to your topic, you should not write. Which is very, very relevant to your topic, you have to select. So the selectively you have to choose, focus and direct on the topic of your interest. That is very important. In the other paper or in the other literature, there may be so many things that they may be mixed up. They are clubbed, but you have to segregate. You have to separate. Selectively you could focus and direct it. Kind of literature to be tried. The purpose of your study should be to fulfill what has been understanding and what is happened and how it has happened and what solutions they have given, what methodologies they adapted to obtain these solutions and how they interpreted and what is the final results they got. All this should be with respect to your subject, your study. And once this is there, this should be related with your subjectual objectives. And why we have to do this? The literature review will give the background knowledge, full comprehensive knowledge about that topic. You will become an expert in that once you do the complete review of literature. That is what already existing in that area. Knowledge, existing knowledge in that area is known to you. Once knowledge is known, then only you could identify what are the concepts that are related. The concepts that are related, the understanding is very important. So for that understanding, identify the concepts which are very close to you. Investigative area and relation between the concepts. What are the relationships? How the determinants will be playing, how they will be getting into that, how they interpreted the results in their own way of thought process of the author, and how you will be differing with them. And all these concepts, all these ideas will be taken by taking into this. And another important reason is you will be knowing is how to formulate the hypothesis related to your research problem. Formulating the hypotheses are very important. Unless you formulate the hypothesis, you cannot validate what is a fact or not. Investigate. How to investigate? The objective is to be converted as an hypothesis. And then what methodologies are available? What is the gap in that methodology? How can you fill that gap? Again, once you identify the appropriate methodology is suitable to solve the problem you have, if it is already existing. Otherwise, how to modify the available methodologies? That will be very important. And once you do the research in this literature review, once you complete the review of literature, you will have an idea of research design. What design is to be adopted, how the research design will be developed, and how that will be, because for all the studies, same design may not be useful. Study to study, the design is also varies. So we have to take care about that. And another very interesting part, we will be knowing what methods of measuring concepts will be useful for us. How different methods are available in measuring the variables that are there, and also understanding the parameters, getting the parameter values, and what instruments we have to use, how to calibrate it, what is the standards that are available. All this will be possible only when we have a methods of measuring the concepts. Then by going through this review of literature, we will be understanding the techniques of analysis. Methods of analysis can be understandable. How to analyze, how we will get analytical thinking, and what are the different techniques that are available, which technique is suitable to which type of hypothesis that was there, and this will be very useful. And by doing this review of literature, we will be knowing that different data sources, what are the various data sources that are used, how the data sources, where they got the data, how they obtained, what is the methodologies to obtain this data. This is very important because we know that for the scientific research, data-driven approaches are more important. Not like haphazard or just experiences that does not work out. It is the data-driven approaches, and we will be knowing that once you do the different literature survey, different articles you have read, different theses you have gone through, different dissertations you have seen, different types of reports you have seen, what is the structure of the reports, how to write the different reports, because for all types the report writing is not same. For thesis it is different, for a research article it is different, for a project report it is a different, for a project proposal it is a different. For different purposes the report will be different. How the different reports will be generated, how they, what is the best way of presentation of this, how we can do this, can be done by going through this literature review. So literature review is very important in understanding. So how to do, how we will get the literature review? Literature forms, books, texts, monographs. This is the first step. We have to read the relevant textbooks, and in that book we may not know all the book at all. Sometimes we may read only the part of the book, a chapter, which is relevant to our study. Similarly, a monograph is available on that particular topic, particular sub level of the topic. We have to go through it definitely, because in that monograph, what they have expressed, the author has given the information, how he has given, what are the available things that are there. This is a very important. Then get the reference books. What are the different reference books that are there? The reference books are very important. We have to take care about the reference books. And there is very important, another is journals. The papers published in the journals is the main source of current literature. We have to have the current literature. In the current literature, we will get from the journals, different journals in that particular subject area. In that subject area also, we have to take care what are the relevant journals we have to take, what are the relevant articles that we have to look into. This is very important, because the subjectual understanding, when we go for a literature review, it is like an ocean. If you want to look into that, you may not be able to get, only you will be getting different ideas. There is every possibility that you may deviate when you are reading the articles, when you are referring the books in that. So you should be very cautious. You should confine to your subjectual topic of that, and particularly that micro level of research which you are going to investigate. In that particular part, your literature should go through. And there are several reports. The reports that are to be, already somebody has submitted a report on that particular area, particular aspect. If it is available, definitely you have to go through it, because that reports are very important. What you have done, how they have done, and what is the important consideration. Another important is this may be in the newspapers. Sometimes some articles written in the newspaper, some information provided in the newspapers. That is also very important. Somebody has quoted that newspaper. You must be able to see that article in that. And media and web resources. Very important. And because nowadays entire e-journals, e-resources, this is very important. Remote accessibility of and will be available everywhere. So microforms and social networks, these are the various sources of literature. Now the literature we can get from library catalog, referring into the libraries, the documentation center, bibliographies, Library of Congress, we can go through this and get it. Publishers catalogs, government reports, indices and abstracts, several other sources we can get. Also, we can get the information of the paper by sending a request in various forms to the peers and experts of that area. Suppose the literature, the paper you have gone through in the other publication that there is a reference given and you have to buy the title, you will be knowing that that reference is very useful to you. But that paper not be able to get. How to get that paper? Then send a request to the peers and experts that if they are having a copy of it, they will send, or send a request to the author. Send me that I am also in that area working in this, so that you will get a copy of it. So you can go through it. Access to secondary sources. There are different types of sources. That primary sources which are directly available. Go to directly and that which are very much important for your study, and the raw material already you have developed, you have the knowledge, you have the resources, you have available of books on that book bank and other things. But the other sources, there are several other sources that will be available where sometimes you have to purchase the data, purchase the literature. That can be done also. Identification of list of theses and dissertations, that will be there in that. Identify, get which theses are relevant to you, which were done already on that. You try to get that work also. Now, one of the very important sources are in the online, so that you can go through it. Library online catalogs, scanning of primary resources, and other abstracts, reviews, and indices. These will provide the different sources, research. And once you do this, how to do that? In the review. When you are reading a paper, this is very important. You have to note down every point in a very useful. In the paper, what is useful to you? For your topic, what is not useful? That you should not write down. So you have to note down the point by point understanding of that paper. Every research paper, not just like a novel, don't read it. It is research or investigation. Put your thought process on that. Put your analytical ability to think about it. So that will enlighten you some knowledge. So to get that, you go through critically. When you go critic, you will get most of the important consideration. So the useful knowledge is very important. You have to note down in that article what is very useful for you, and another what is not useful to you. That is that you should not use it. How the useful to your objectives of the study, sub-objective, objective, sub-objective, sub-sub-objective level that you have to take. How to record the gathered sources, that is very important. How to record that whatever resources, whatever thing you have done for your research, how you have. Classification and organization of the reviews. This is another very important consideration. You have to plan how to classify, how to write, how to put the literature that you have gone through, you have studied, you have collected, that you have to take, and note taking. Take a note on that and summarize and correlate this information related to your topic of study and structure of the relevant. When you are having the literature, review of literature are really a type of research. It is not. Research actually starts just not by reading. It is a structured in a scientific manner you have to read. the first anatomy of any article, if you look, the article will have these things. One is the absolutely you have to read the abstract. That is very important. Second one is the introduction. The introduction will provide you for that author why you have chosen that, what is the motivation for the problem under study, that is the article was written. That article, that paper was written, that introduction. In the introduction part, who has done what type of work already done, that was mentioned in that. So that will provide you an opportunity to know how the work has been generated, what is the motivation for them. You have to go through it. Once you get it, most of the papers in that introduction level, you need not proceed further, because that may not give you the concept of phenomenon what we require. Only the papers or only the articles which are very, very relevant can decide once you read the abstract and introduction. Once you read the abstract and introduction, you feel that that is very important and interesting for your work, useful for your work. Then you can go through the what is the adopted to solve this problem. What is the different methods? How the methods are different from the earlier methods? Critically, you have to go through. What the results he got it? How he put the discussion? What is his thought? Do you agree or not agree? If he agrees with somebody else already done or not, and how he has presented that, then what conclusions he has given, then what are the other references. So that paper, full length paper. So in the paper you have to three. These are the steps that will be there. First you have to go through abstract, then introduction. Then if it is very interesting, go for methodology, results, discussion, conclusion, and note down the important references. All references may not be useful to you. Only few of them may be useful. So note down which are the few that are very important, because if you go on referring the references of every paper, you cannot come out of it. Your time is very constrained. So you have to take important references. That is the very interesting and important consideration. So this is very important, the structure of the review of literature. Once you have done, you have to make this a general organization look. It is like a funnel. Broad topic area, then subtopic area, studies like yours. So you have to pinpoint the studies like yours, which you want to have. Because to go first the broad, then that. That's why you have to read abstract of several of the papers. In the abstract itself, you will be understanding. You will be knowing in the abstract itself what the problem, how he has answered, and what is the results he got it. And if it is relevant to your study, then only you have to go through that part of the thing. And organizing that review. The methods, different methods are there. One is the subjective. You have to classify, because the literature you have to classify accordingly. In review cover, you have different topics that are to be taken. You have different objectives for your thesis to answer. So your thesis, when it is focusing on different topics, the topic of different literatures. So you have to identify, you have to segregate which topic is relevant to which type of the idea, which subject format it is. So you have different topics that are to be taken, different objects. Each objective you want to analyze, you want to get the answer for that. So to get this, you have to segregate. Then the themes, the different themes, different ideas, different trends, theories. Accordingly, you have to segregate your review of literature. And sometimes you have to put one author is writing on the same part, different points. But how he has generated, what is the chronological order he has generated that ideas, one idea to next step to next, what is the extension, what is the next extension, next part of the extension. This part is very important. So the author, if he is taking it, one author, another author, how he has differed, how he agrees with that, how he has done, that part is very important. Then sometimes it is the analytical argument. One type of argument differs from the other type of arguments. What are the different types of arguments? These are very important. So you have to segregate the entire literature accordingly, and you have to present all these part in the same part of the thing. Also, it is very important. Sometimes your review of literature you have to organize in a chronological order. What is this chronological order? That time, publication date. So one going back forward to backward or backward to forward. You may go from forward to backward, that is now to past. This is done, and prior to this was happened, prior to this happened. Like that you can write. Or this is the starting point, here pointed this idea, and then extension was given by this, and then further extension, further part of this, further extensions. Like that you have to take. Another is trend. What is the different trends in that? How the different trends have been developed in the chronological order. Which type of the modification that has been taken, which type of extension that has been taken. Like that trend. By trend you can write in a chronological order, or by publication date you can order. Second one is the methodological. Focuses on the methods of the research. The methodologically. Different methods may be there, qualitative, quantitative methods. So how one has approached, what is the different methods that has been taken. Methodological studies that you can write in a methodological way, and sometimes you have to write the relationship between the elements, the relation, different concepts. This you have to write in an organization, because each should have a continuity. The continuity is very important. One, the reader should get an understanding and interest towards reading it. Once you have written the literature, it is like a storytelling. If it is not like a storytelling, the reader may not get interested to read it. He gets bored. Then he may not go through, all your effort will go waste. So when you are presenting the literature, you should be very careful. It should be like a storytelling in that. Then the literature review will be in this way. We can classify usually in a systematic literature review, that is inductive logic. Because the logic we will be knowing as inductive logic or deductive logic. Logic is only two types in the philosophy. Any subject will be taken as a philosophy. In the philosophy of that subject, we have inductive. Inductive is specific to general. We study a part, infer about the whole universe. How the parts have been studied and inferred. And deductive. Deductive is going from general to specific. So what is generalization happened? Then a specific, an element belongs to that, how it has been. Or chronological in a time sequence, forward to backward, or backward to forward, anyway, or a mix, and overview. It's all parts of the debate and picture. So this part we have to take. In an article we will be knowing how it will be. It is there. Then what is very important for a good literature review? Focus it. Person read the literature review, it should be very much focused about the topic. So the topic should be narrow, micro level. You should only present ideas and only report on the studies that are closely related to the topic. That is very important. Irrelevant and unnecessary topics should be avoided. Discussion of that. Which is very relevant, that should be there. Otherwise, it does not meaningful particular part of the literature. So it should be very much focused towards the topic of study. Another, it should be very important, concise. When you are writing this, you should take the ideas, present that very academically. Academically in the sense, very concise, because the reading, the number of words, the pages, that matters much. That does not mean you should not write. You have to write if it is demand, it requires. But at the same time, when you are presenting it, it should be more effective. more effective in the way of presentation. And when you are presenting it, the ideas, the important conceptual idea, do not take any more space than you need or present your ideas. And very important, when you are concisely writing that, what is the part of the thing? Another important thing is logical. Should be very logical. The flow within and among paragraphs should be a smooth. One para to another para, there should be a connectivity. And it should be logically, reasonably meaningful. Logical progression from one idea to the another idea to another to another. The progression should be very systematic and sequential. If it is not systematic and sequential, the connectivity won't be there. If it is not connected, the reader will feel that something is missing in that. Then he cannot understand properly what your ideas, because the presentation is very, very important. The another is what the developer. Do not leave the story. That is very, very important. If suppose some other has started, you are writing about critically about that. Don't leave it in the middle. Don't put it haphazardly. Don't just put a sentence stating this is they have done. What exactly is thought process, how it differs, how it agrees, how it will be useful, and what is your comment on that. That should be there. That is very important. And another important is integrate. That have to integrate the ideas in the earlier studies as well as the current study and other part of the thing. So you have to integrate the literature that you have studied with respect to what happened, how he agreed, how he disagreed, what is the newness, what is the already existing, and this critical view, critical analysis is very important. Should focus on working being done on the cutting. It should lead you the motivation towards your topic of study. And there are several important references, softwares, reference management softwares that are available online. Some of them are free of cost. Some of them are little purchasable. You can use, many of the libraries are having it. You can contact the librarian so that they will provide you the required consideration. These are some of the important bibliographic contents that are available online. And this is one type of online available. Once you do this literature review in a systematic and structured way, what you understand, what you got it with this structure, you have written what you have already done, how you have done, what is the gap. There were clouds earlier. When you have started with this research problem, it is like a cloud, but now clouds have been clear. You have to understand what is the research gap in that area. With this research gap, you could be able to understand and you could be able to analyze now. So gap analysis is very, very important for any project proposal, any thesis or any research paper. What is the gap in knowledge? And that gap will provide you the motivation and justification for your problem to be taken up. Motivation and justification you will be getting from where? Your literature review. Literature review will strengthen your research idea. This will provide you the formulation of the research problem very specific fashion and objective defined very clearly. Once you have gone through your research review of literature, then once the literature review is done, you have identified what is the gap in that and how to fill that gap and what are the new methodology required, why this is required and what you are expected, what is your expected outcome out of it. This motivation and justification will provide you very interesting and important part of thing. So this will give you the final problem statement of this. Unless you complete your literature review, you cannot refine your problem statement because the first stage of the problem that you have taken up is in a fluid state. It will be very specific, it will be very clear. Only once you complete your literature review and completed the gap analysis, that will provide the justification as well as the motivation for doing this work. so that you can modify your problem statement and you can write now the clear problem statement on what topic do I wish to do research, investigation, and what is the subject or thrust of my research. How many elements are there in this topic? Can I make it more for? This is very important. You will get once you complete your review of literature in a systematic and structured fashion, what we have discussed so far, then you will get the problem statement. Once you will get this problem statement, here you must also get another very interesting. What do I not want to investigate? Unnecessary waste of time is not required. What is my basic problem? What is my objective? That objective, how I can proceed? What are the boundaries of the topic? That is very important. Otherwise, it is endless. The investigations of the research areas, once you go, if you're investigating, no more further scope will be there. For every topic, there is a scope for further extensions. If you don't put your boundaries, you cannot stop your work. You cannot find, you cannot write your report. So, which is to be included, which is to be excluded, that you have to take. This will formulate the final specific objectives of the study. So, the scope, limitations, and also the available constraints. That with this literature review, we could be able to do that. And you could be able to get the research design. Once you have the problem statement and objectives, now literature you have known, already expertise you got it by studying the literature, you are now able to go in a step forward towards your research design. So in a research design, you will be knowing about the nature of the study, the purpose of the study, the location where the study would be conducted or experiment is to be done, and nature of data required. This is very important. What nature of data is required? Once you have the objectives, each objective you may divide again into sub-objectives. The sub-objectives once you take, there will be, you have to identify what is the nature of the data. On what variables, what determinants, what parameters you have to collect the data. That is very important. Once you have this part, then which time period you have to collect. What type of sample design would be used? What techniques of data collection are to be used? What methods of data analysis is to be used? How the results are to be analyzed and correlated with the objectives? How to write the report? That will be coming out. So for all this, once you got the objectives and sub-objectives, sub-objectives, the next important is the data analysis. For any research work, data-driven approaches are more efficient, more robust than other methodologies. So data-driven, because we know that we have data. Once you have collected the data, then you have to process that as an information. Data converts as an information. Information is to be converted as a knowledge. Information will provide you as a knowledge. You can get information processing will give you further as a knowledge. Knowledge is there, then you will get wisdom. Wisdom will provide you what decisions are to be taken, what time, what is the required information that was there to take a good decision, to make a good policy, to adapt, to utilize, to develop a resource part of the thing, or utilize optimally the resources, you will be knowing that. So we have a flow like this: data, data to information, information to knowledge, knowledge to wisdom. So when we are doing that, that's where why we require data analysis. This is very important and interesting. So the first and foremost, why we have to go for data analysis. Once you have done the literature review systematically, the next step is data collection. But before we go for data collection, let me tell you why this collection of data. Data collection is for data analysis. So require this to establish the difference between the perception and reality. To establish the difference between perception and reality. For that, we require this. What do we require? The data analysis. We have certain perception. We think about, we thought about by our gut feelings or by experiences or by discussion or by visualization. Is that perception is a reality? We may not know unless we validate it, unless we scientifically prove it. So how to do that? Scientifically proving that perception is a reality or not. To do that, we have to collect the data, analyze the data, interpret the analysis. Then the data analysis is required to gather facts for good decision making. For any decision making, how the decision will be arising if there is an alternative. If there is no alternative, no decision making will be there. If there is an alternative, then only a decision making. If you have several alternatives, which alternative is to be chosen so that you can utilize optimally the resources? Your decision will be correct. So for that, you require to gather the data to take a good decision making. Data analysis, data driven approach. Once you do the data analysis, that will support the decision making. More important is for better understanding of the processes. To understand the processes and products. If you understand that what is required, you have to analyze the data. How it is behaving, how it will be taking care, what is the nature of that process. This can be understandable once you analyze the data. Another is to characterize the processes, how to represent the data, the processes, how can we represent it? Just by characterization. What is the characterization? Different parameters. How the parameters will be there are variables. That parameters are to be measured. Once you measure it, once you categorize it, once you do that, qualitative or quantitative data, then only you could characterize the processes. You can understand the phenomenon of that process. You can be able to analyze further that process. So for that, it will be very important. Another thing is validate the process, whether the process works well or not, for the required purpose or not, whether the developed process or the product will be useful for the purpose it was developed, it was used. For that validation, examination of that fitness that can be tested by validating the processes. That can be done only by data analysis. The next one is to provide a baseline for process performance. How can we analyze the benchmark? Because many processes require benchmarking. The benchmarking can be done just by taking the important consideration of taking into how we can fix the golden standard for that. So the golden standard are observed certain specified values. This can be done by data analysis. Suppose a student got first class. First class, how can we decide? If we get 60% above. Why 60%? Why not 80%? Why not 50%? Why first class it determines 60%? There is a rationale behind it. The rationale is taking into the data how the 40% of the people will be above the mark, 40% of the marks, which will determine the IQ levels. So this benchmark will be taken into that. For that, we require data analysis. Data analysis is very important. Not only this, there are several other areas where we require a robust data analysis that can be done by collecting the data. Once you have data only, the data analysis. So very important step. Next one is data collection. How to do this data collection? That can be done by taking very important consideration for doing the data collection methodologies. First, we have to understand statistical population. Population here does not mean just a human population. It is a statistical population. So we have four important terms that are to be taken. One is population. That is a statistical population. A statistical population in research methodology, we have to identify first a group of elements under study is known as a population. Group of elements under study. Suppose I want to study the marks obtained by the students in the final year BTech class of mechanical engineering. Final year BTech class students of mechanical engineering, what is the percentage of students that were there. The population is who are studying in a particular college. That particular college, the final year mechanical engineering students that will come into a population. So we have to take the population. First we have to identify with each individual with a label that will formulate a sample frame. The list of all identifiers of the elements in the population. List of all identifiable particulars of the elements in the population. That will formulate a sample frame. Population, once you define, you have a sample frame. This population may be sometimes finite, sometimes infinite. There is a finite population. If the number of elements are countable in the group, the elements are countable, then we have a finite population. If the number of elements are non-countable, then we have infinite population. There are many not countable, like stars in a sky. Can we count them? We cannot count. Fish in the sea. Can we count them? We cannot count. Like that, if the population may be finite, population may be infinite. So these are the very important considerations when we are having this. Another important thing is, here we have already known the logic. Logic is of inductive logic and deductive logic. So deductive logic is studying the whole universe, inferring about a part of it. That can be done in many of the things. Suppose if we see the real number system, we properties of all the real numbers. If it belongs to that property, one real number is taken, that real number will also possess all the characters of the whole system. That will be there. So studying the whole universe and inferring about a part, we call it as a deductive logic. But the other way, studying the whole universe may not be possible. In order to infer about the whole universe, what we will study? We study a part of it first. We'll take and that subgroup we will study and we infer about the whole universe. That is inductive logic. So a sample. Here for inductive logic, the statistical analysis, most of the times, most of the studies, we will bother about the sample study. We will study inductive logic is induced in that. We take a part, study about all the properties of it and induct that properties into the whole universe, whole population. So a part of the group, a part of the population is called a sample. A part of the population is called a population. It is a subgroup of elements selected from the population is called as a sample. Once you have a population, the characters of the population is known as a parameter. Parameter in the statistical sense is characters of the average, population average. The average height of the student in a university is a parameter. The variance of the height of the students in the university, the variance of the marks obtained in the university, that is a parameter. So whole universe we are taking about Andhra University, I am talking about the student performance, then the mean and variances, these are the two parameters that will be. But studying the whole population of the universe, that are there are 12,000 students in Andhra University, may not be possible for me. So I may take a part of it, a sample, a group of people, group of students, then I can take the inferences from that. Of the sample, the characters of that sample, the function of the sample observation is known as statistic. A statistic is a function of the sample observations. So these statistics will provide me an estimate the population parameter. Population parameter which is unknown to me. So in order to estimate the population parameter, I take a sample and I take a function of the sample observations, and that sample observations will provide me a statistic, and this statistic will be utilized to estimate the population parameter. This is very important for a concept of statistical inference or a data analysis. For any data analysis, this part is very important. So when we are going for the sampling. A sampling is a process of selecting a good representative. Because when you are taking a sample, a part of it, it should be a representative of the population. A very good representative of the population. So how to take it is a good representative of the population. There are different methodologies are there to select the sample, data collection of that. To collect the data, there are different methodologies. Once you take this, one principle insists on this. What is that principle? Law of statistical regularity. Law of statistical regularity talk about how to collect the sample. That is the very interesting and important thing. The law of statistical regularity lays down that a group of objectives chosen at random from a large group tends to process the characteristics of that large group, the population. That is, if the sample size is large, if the sample size is large, then that will depict, the sample will depict the population, is a good representative of the population. This is very important consideration. That insist on as much as possible. You have to take a large sample. The second one is random selection. The selection must be random. If you select randomly without using your bias or prejudice, if you take randomly, that is giving chance for every element to enter, use the laws of probability, chance laws, then it is random, stochastic. So random selection, if the element is selected into the sample from the population, then it has a very good representative of the population because no bias is there in that. So this is the statistical regularity. The principle of statistical regularity is very important. Law of statistical regularity will talk moderately large number of items should be there and law of inertia of large numbers. Another is the size of the sample is more, that depicts like a population. This when you are collecting the data, the sample, when you are collecting, there are two things are very important. We have a primary data, the other one is secondary data. Data collection can be done primary data and secondary data. Primary data is directly collecting from the respondent. Data collection directly from the respondent. If you are collecting the data directly from the respondent, if you are measuring the units, taking that, if you are taking the opinion respondent and noting down, then it is a primary data, your first hand information. You are collecting the information for the first time. That is a primary data. Instead of that, already somebody for some other purpose or some other consideration, the information variables or parameters is already collected. On these variables is collected. And that is recorded. The recorded data is available. If you use the data, then it is a secondary data. Secondary data is already existing data. If you use the existing, it is a secondary data. If you use it is a, for the first time you are collecting first hand information, that is a primary data. So you can use primary data or secondary data depending on the availability of time, money and consumption. And availability of the data also. So most of the things here we will go for primary data. Even both the cases, if the data is large, you can do in a systematic and a structured fashion the data. So how to collect the data is, you may use different methods of collection. You can prepare a questionnaire or you can prepare a schedule and you can go through it, or you can conduct direct personal interviews or telephonic interviews or mailed questionnaire methodologies. You can adopt different you can adopt and you collect the primary data. So here the structure of the statistical inferences, when you look into that, you have a population is too large, then sample is the population, collect the data from the sample, then organize the data, analyze the data and draw the inferences. This is the procedure that we have to adapt. Why we have to go for sample? Sample we have to go for because of these advantages. Sample is collecting a part of it and inferring about the whole universe. It is very accurate. The second one is economical in nature. The third one is very reliable. You are taking only a part of it. You could be very careful. You could be able to measure very cautiously. You could understand the concept of each and every variable, and you can measure and you can calibrate the instruments, and you can take more accurately the result. Suitability ratio towards the different surveys. It is useful for different surveys because small samples will be sample size is small than the population. So a smaller number you have in hand so that you can take. And more importantly, time. It does not take more time because if you take a complete enumeration, that is population, each and every element is measured, each and every element from that the response is collected, then it takes a lot of time. Instead of that, you are taking a sample, not complete enumeration. Complete enumeration is known as census. If you take the census totally, it takes a lot of time. But if you take part of it, it takes less time. In case when the universe is very large, then sampling is the only methodology. In addition to that, if the sampling, if the unit, once you measure it or once you observe its performance, it is destructive. It means it loses its life. For example, crackers. The quality of the cracker you want to test. If you go each and every cracker, no crackers will be there. Forms. You cannot do that always. So if it is loss is type, some cases you have to go for only sampling. Sampling has a lot of advantages. That's why people will take sample. But it does not mean always you have to go for a sample. When you have not to take sample, if the population size is not large, if the population size is small, suppose you want to investigate the performance of the employee in a small where there are some 25 employees. In an organization only 25, the population size is 25. You want to know the opinion of those employees on a particular aspect, the satisfaction levels of that employee and the performance of that company. So where you need not go for a sample because already it is a small in number. The sample size, the population size itself is very small. So you can measure each and every, you can collect the response from every objective of that population, and you can have the direct parameter value. Parameter value can be directly computed. You need not estimate. You need not take your sampling a random phenomenon into that. You need not take into the errors, take into due to sample. So in such case, if the population size is small, you need not go for sampling at all. There is no need of statistical validation or statistical testing of hypothesis also. So if the population is large, then only you have to do. If population is large, then you have to take a sample, you have to validate, you have to use statistical test. Otherwise, what to test, you need not test anything. If you know every parameter value, true value of the parameter is directly known to you, there is no need of going for a simple testing of hypothesis in that case. And there is no need of going for a sample also. In such case, we need not use that. Here, some important issues of the sampling methodology. But samples are very useful because most of the cases we have a large population. When we have a large population, we have to take sampling. When we are taking the sample, it should be a good representative. Then it should be generalized for the whole universe. From the sample, we have to infer about the universe. Another very important thing is you should be very careful about sampling error because the chance occurrence that a randomly selected sample is not a representative of the population due to errors inherent in the sampling technique. Because only a part, inferring about the whole universe, there is every possibility that there is an error. The sample that you have taken may not be a good representative of the population. It may be a good representative, fine, the error is less. If it is not a good representative, then the error will. There is a chance of there is a sampling error when you are taking a sample. This is very important. The sample error, always you want to keep it at a lowest level. If the sample size increases, then you can understand that as the sample size increases, you can see from here, if you are increasing the sample size, the sampling error will be decreasing and stabilizes after certain point of sample size. After certain point, it stabilizes. The point itself is the sample size, optimal sample size. The sample size determination is also very, very important. That is to be taken care in that. What are the different types of samples? Different types of samples, when we look into that, there is two types of sampling methodologies that are available in data collection. Two types of data collection methodology. One is random sample, probability sampling. The other is non-probabilistic sampling. What is the probabilistic sampling? The first one is simple random sampling, systematic sampling, stratified random sampling, multi-stage sampling, cluster sampling. There are different types of sampling methodologies. In addition to that, there are some other sampling methodologies also there, probability proportional to size and other advanced methodologies. But usual 99% of the studies in the usual consideration, we will use these methodologies only. One of these methodologies only. So this is the probabilistic samples, and the other is non-probabilistic samples. What are non-probabilistic samples? We have a convenience sample, purposive sample, and quota sample. Out of these two, what is the purpose of taking a sample? The basic idea is it should be a good representative. How can you ensure that it is a good representative? The law of statistical regularity says that it should be random. The sample should be random, so that no bias, no prejudice will enter into that. When it is random, we will have the consideration of taking into that. Therefore, a random sample is more important and more efficient than a non-probabilistic sample. So we have to go for random samples. We have to go for random samples only. In this probabilistic sample, we have probability of sampling. One is the very important is that a chance loss of chance are adopted in this. We have a simple random sampling. The first one is simple random sampling. Let us look into random sampling. We have easy to do that is selecting a simple random sample. What is the random sampling? We are giving chance for each and every element to enter into the sample is same. From the population, we are selecting the elements. The chance, the probability of selecting every element into the sample from the is same. Then we say simple random sample. How we will do? We can do a lottery system, or we can use a random number tables. We can use a random number table or a lottery system. In a lottery system, suppose we will have the sample frame. Sample frame already we defined. Identifiable particulars of the population. Those finite population, when we are having a finite population, we have identified each and every element of the population. We put in a small strip of paper in a giving the numbers of each and every element, put it in a box, shuffle them, pick up one. Take that. Once it is picked up, you can. Here in the simple random sample, with replacement or without replacement. We have with replacement or without replacement. That is, once a paper is taken out, you can note down that into the population, that number, into the sample. From population to sample it has arrived. Without replacement means you put it back. Without replacement means keep it out because already it has appeared. So with the remaining n-1, capital N in the population size, capital N-1 observations, take up another sample. Like that, if you go on taking until your sample size is taken out, a sample size of, suppose you have from 1000 observations. From 1000 you want to select 100 observations. So this 1000 put it in a box, shuffle the numbers, pick up one. Once you keep it aside. Then with the remaining, shuffle them, again take one. Like that you do. Or without replacement means you put it back again, replace back again with replacement and take out. This simple random and without. But we know that without replacement is more efficient than with replacement. Why? Because in the sample size, if you take with replacement, the observations may be the same. If the observations are same, again it may not represent the whole population. It will represent only one population element. twice or thrice or more than that. So to avoid that, we can have that part of the thing. So simple random sample is the most simplest one. But when to use the simple random sample? When the population is homogeneous. Homogeneous in the sense, the variance of the population is very, very small. All observations behave similar, or the population has the same, more or less same characteristic under study. The observation and the study is the same. Then we'll take, suppose the IQ levels of the students in a particular class, we want to study about that in a particular year of students. Then the IQ levels more or less will reflect the same. So they are homogeneous. We take in a homogeneous fashion. But always taking simple random samples sometimes will be difficult because we require the sample frame. But total sample frame may not be available for us. So then we can go for a systematic sample. This is also called first step sampling. Because here we arrange all the observations in a order.
Excuse me, sir.
Suppose we want to take, yes, please.
Sorry for the interruption, sir. Sir, we are having short of time, sir. So we have only 10 minutes left. And we can close down in 5 minutes. It will be good for us.
Okay.
Then we have question hours.
Yeah. I will give you. In 2 minutes, I will close down and then I will get back in that. Yeah, sure.
Okay, sir.
So systematic, I will mention. Systematic sampling, you have a systematically you can go, or in a systematic, once the selection is there in a systematic sample, you can have in this, then stratified random sample. This is very interesting. We can divide into the stratification. We have men and women and then divide two groups because the character, this is we can take within the group, they are more homogeneous, between the groups they are heterogeneous. If they are heterogeneous between the groups, heterogeneous means more variability. And within the group, they are more homogeneous. Then we use stratified. Stratified random is most commonly used methodology. We use several places this, and a stratified is like this. You can see this, and then cluster sample. Cluster is sometimes in a group they are more heterogeneous. Between the groups, they are more homogeneous. Because the populations are large, we can divide either the neighborhood, districts, or schools, or classrooms like that. So each of that again we will take a sample. It is almost called a two-stage sampling like methodology. There is also a multi-stage sample. In the cluster we have one cluster, each cluster we can take into that. And once you have this, a multi-stage sampling methodologies will be there, and you can take different in a large sample. Multi-stage sampling, and non-probabilistic sampling is convenience, purposive, and this in a convenience sample out of our convenience we may select, it may not be very good, and purposive for a specified judgment we may use, for purposively we may select it, it is also not useful, and quota sample is sometimes we may not have the entire sample frame of population is not known. Until the quota is filled, we can have the quota sampling. Like exit polls, in an election, we go for quota sampling. Sometimes we may not know the population at all. Then we use this snowball sample, and snowball sampling is also a non-random sampling. And these sampling errors are there. Then we have non-sampling errors. Sampling errors, because sample of that, we have a sampling error. The non-sampling errors is recording data and data recording measurement errors and like this. These will be non-sampling errors. And the very important in sampling methodology is determination of the sample size. One has to go through the sample size. There are to determine that confidence intervals will be there, and a sample size determination there is a specified formulas, and you can use this formula and you can get, you need not take haphazardly 5%, 10%, some people usually take 20% like that. It should not be done. There is a systematic methodology to take the optimal sample size for each of the methodology, and the formula there, you can use that formula for this. And there is a table. In addition to that, so far we have taken the sample in a part of thing. There is another data collection method. Designs of experiments. Most of the scientific experiments will be done on designing the experiment only. So this is based on 3 principles: randomization, replication, and local control. This is about the data collection. Because of the time constraint, I could not go in detail about this. this is a very important and interesting topic, and I will leave the PPTs with the organizers, so you can share with the participants this PPT so that they can use this. They can the important. If they have any doubts, you can ask.
Yes, sir. Sure, sir.
Yeah. Anybody has any doubts on this?
Dear participants, now this is open for question session. If anyone want to ask, you can unmute and ask your queries to sir.
No queries. It is a lunch break or something after this.
Yes, sir.
Okay, if no queries, I thank the organizers, particularly the organizing secretary or the director and convener, as well as all other members, and my friend Mallikarjun Rao and all the others for giving me an opportunity. My special thanks to for the given opportunity. Also, I thank the participants. I have a lot of experience in this research methodology, taking classes and other things. So those, if you are very much interested about interacting with me, or if you have any clarification, not only now, you may contact me later also. My email ID is ksraoau@yahoo.co.in, so that you can contact me if you have any doubts on the specific. Definitely will be giving you the response. I thank once again every one of you for the given opportunity to me.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. It was really a great pleasure for us and privilege to have you as our resource person. Thank you so much, sir, for accepting our request and being with us and spending time from your valuable time. You have spent time with us, and your talk was really impressive, sir. You have given all ideas vastly, and it is really, for us, we could not complete it because of lack of time. So we are sorry for that. However, I will provide the slides to the participants. They will go through it. Thank you so much, sir.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you. I will leave and I will send the PPTs to Mallikarjun so that you can.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, definitely. Dear participants, we are going to close this session. We will meet again at 2 o'clock. Thank you all for participation in this session. That's a great